The stars belong to the Cytherian hegemony. At least that's what Admiral Zexai believed as he stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. Through the massive viewing screen, he watched another world burn. The planet below had once been home to a species called the Vellani. Now it was just another conquest in the hegemony's endless march across the galaxy. Admiral, his aide approached with a data pad. The final count from Velan Prime, population eliminated. Resources cataloged. The world is ready for Cytherian colonization. Zexai nodded. His crystalline form caught the light from the burning world, casting rainbow patterns across the bridge. Like all Cytherians, he was tall and angular, made of living crystal that could change color with his emotions. Right now, he glowed a satisfied blue-green. Excellent. That makes 53 worlds in the past 1,000 years. He turned to face his bridge crew. Mark this day. The hegemony grows stronger. The Cytherians had been conquering for so long that it felt natural. Their technology was superior to every species they met. Their military was unbeatable. Their destiny was clear: to rule the galaxy and bring order to the chaos of lesser civilizations. A communication officer looked up from her station. Admiral, we're receiving a report from Deep Scout 7. They've found something interesting. Show me. The main screen changed to show Captain Morthek, a seasoned scout commander. His crystal form was a dull yellow, which meant he was uncertain about something. Admiral, we've discovered a new system on the edge of unexplored space. It's unusual. Explain. There's a single star with 9 planets. The third planet shows signs of intelligent life. The species calls themselves humans and their world Earth. But Admiral, there's something strange about this system. Zexai's colors shifted to orange with impatience. Get to the point, Captain. The entire system is surrounded by warning beacons, sir. Hundreds of them. They're broadcasting messages in every known language and many we don't recognize. The messages all say the same thing. Warning. Earth defense perimeter. Unauthorized entry will result in total annihilation. This is your only warning. The bridge fell silent. Zexai stared at the screen for a long moment. Warning beacons? What species builds warning beacons around their entire system? That's just it, sir. Our scientists have analyzed the beacons. They're old, very old. Older than any civilization we know about. The technology is, well, we can't understand how they work. Zexai felt his crystal body shift to purple with curiosity. Show me the scans. The screen filled with images of the warning beacons. They were simple-looking devices, just metal spheres floating in space. But according to the scans, they had been there for millions of years. They drew power from some unknown source and broadcast their warnings without any visible technology. What about the humans themselves? Zexai asked. Primitive, sir. They've barely left their own planet. They have some satellites and a small space station, but nothing that could threaten us. Their technology appears to be only a few hundred years old. They shouldn't be able to build anything like these beacons. Zexai studied the data. The humans looked unremarkable. They were small, soft creatures made of flesh instead of crystal. Their ships were tiny metal boxes powered by chemical rockets. Their weapons were simple explosives and projectiles. By any measure, they were exactly the kind of species the hegemony conquered every few years. Perhaps the beacons are left over from a previous civilization, suggested his science officer. Maybe the humans found them and decided to use them for defense? Possible, Zexai mused. What do our experts say about the warning messages? They're translated perfectly into every language we've tested, sir. Including ours. The beacons somehow know what language each ship uses and broadcast the warning in that exact language. Our linguists say the translations are perfect, not machine translations. Someone who truly understood each language wrote these messages. This was interesting. In all their conquests, the Cytherians had never encountered anything like this. Most species they met were either too primitive to pose any threat or too weak to resist for long. But perfect translations into hundreds of languages? Technology that lasted for millions of years? That suggested something unusual. What are your recommendations, Captain? Zexai asked. Sir, I recommend we proceed with extreme caution. The beacons might be connected to some kind of automated defense system. We should send a small probe first, see what happens when something crosses into their territory. Zexai's aide stepped forward. Admiral, with respect, we've heard warnings before. Every species we conquer claims they have powerful friends or ancient defenses. None of them ever do. These humans are clearly primitive. Whatever built those beacons is probably long dead. The aide has a point, said the weapons officer. We've conquered 53 worlds. We've never encountered anything we couldn't handle. These humans can't even travel faster than light properly. Their entire military couldn't scratch the paint on one of our ships. Zexai considered this. It was true. Every species they had encountered had been weaker than the Catherians. Every warning had turned out to be empty bluffing. Every ancient defense had been broken or abandoned long ago. Perhaps you're right, he said slowly. But those beacons are genuinely old. Millions of years old, so? His aide pressed. Old doesn't mean dangerous. It probably means broken down and useless. For all we know, the humans found some ancient museum pieces and decided to use them to scare away visitors. The science officer pulled up another display. Admiral, look at this. We've detected several other species in nearby systems that show clear signs of recent contact with these humans. Trade routes, communication networks, even some kind of mutual defense pacts. If the humans were really dangerous, would other species be working with them so openly? That was a good point. Dangerous species were usually isolated, feared by their neighbors. These humans seem to have friends. What's the strategic value of the system? Zexai asked. Hi, sir. The star is stable and long-lived. The planets include several that would be perfect for Catherian colonies. There are also significant mineral resources and what appears to be a very sophisticated biological ecosystem that could be useful for research. Zexai felt his crystal form shift to a determined red color. The hegemony needed new worlds. They had a growing population and an expanding empire to maintain. Good planets were becoming harder to find as they moved further from their home systems. Very well, he announced. We'll treat this like any other conquest. The beacons are probably just ancient decorations left behind by some dead civilization. The humans are clearly primitive and pose no real threat. What are your orders, sir? Asked his aide. Prepare a standard conquest fleet. 200 ships should be more than enough to handle a single primitive world. We'll jump into their system, demand their surrender, and add Earth to the hegemony. And if the beacons actually do something when we cross the perimeter? Asked the science officer. Zexai's colors shifted to confident gold. Then we'll deal with whatever ancient security system they represent. We're the Catherian hegemony. We've conquered 53 worlds and dozens of species. We've never met anything we couldn't handle. Sir, Captain Morthek called from the screen. What should I tell my crew about the warnings? Tell them what I'm telling everyone, Zexai replied. We are Catherians. We do not bow to warnings from primitives or fear threats from ancient ruins. We go where we choose, take what we need, and rule what we conquer. The bridge crew responded with approval, their crystal forms glowing with confident colors. This was the Catherian way. This was how they had built their empire. Zexai looked back at the burning world below them. Soon, Earth would look the same. Another victory for the hegemony. Another step toward their destiny of ruling the galaxy. He had no idea how wrong he was. 3 weeks later, Admiral Zexai stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion as his conquest fleet approached the Sol system. 200 of the hegemony's finest warships traveled with him, their crystal hulls gleaming in the light of distant stars. It was more than enough firepower to destroy 100 primitive worlds. Admiral, his navigation officer called out. We're approaching the beacon perimeter. Through the main screen, Zexai could see them now. The warning beacons hung in space like a necklace of stars around the entire solar system. As his fleet drew closer, the beacons began to pulse with bright light. Sir, we're receiving transmissions from the beacons, reported the communications officer. The warnings are getting stronger. Put them on speaker. The bridge filled with a voice that spoke perfect Catherian. Warning. Earth defense perimeter. Unauthorized military fleet detected. Turn back now or face total annihilation. This is your final warning. Some of the bridge crew shifted uncomfortably, their crystal forms flickering with nervous yellow colors. But Zexai remained confident red. How are they speaking our language so perfectly? Asked his aide. Unknown, sir, replied the linguistics officer. But the accent and grammar are perfect. Whoever programmed these beacons understood Catherian language better than most Catherians do. It doesn't matter, Zexai declared. Ancient tricks and old warnings won't stop the hegemony. Continue forward. As the fleet crossed the beacon line, something strange happened. The warnings didn't stop. Instead, they became more personal. Admiral Zexai of the Catherian hegemony, the voice said, and everyone on the bridge froze. You have conquered 53 worlds. You have destroyed the Villani, The Morphic Collective, the Song Weavers of Altara. You believe this makes you strong. You are about to learn how wrong you are. How do they know our names? Whispered the aide. How do they know our history? Zexhai felt his confidence waver slightly, his red color flickering with orange uncertainty. But he pushed the feeling down. Propaganda and intimidation. They must have spies or intercepted our communication somehow. The fleet continued deeper into the Sol system. As they approached the inner planets, they got their first look at Earth itself. It was a blue and green world covered with water and land masses. It looked peaceful, almost beautiful. Sir, called the tactical officer. I'm detecting human ships approaching our position. How many? 12 vessels, sir. They're strange. The main screen showed the approaching human ships. They weren't the primitive chemical rockets the scouts had reported. These vessels were sleek and elegant, made of some kind of smooth metal that seemed to absorb light. They moved without any visible engines or exhaust. Their technology appears more advanced than our initial report suggested, observed the science officer. Still only 12 ships against our 200, Zexhai replied. Prepare weapons. Before he could give the order to fire, the lead human ship transmitted a message. The screen showed a human female with brown skin and dark hair tied back in a neat style. She wore a simple blue uniform with no visible rank insignia. Greetings, Admiral Zexhai, she said in perfect Cytherian. I am Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force. We know why you're here. Zexhai stared at the human. She looked so small and fragile compared to his crystal crew, but her eyes were calm and confident in a way that made him uncomfortable. Human, he replied. You will surrender your world to the Cytherian hegemony. Your species will be relocated to designated areas. Your planet will become a Cytherian colony. Resistance is futile. Captain Chen smiled, but it wasn't a happy expression. Admiral, do you know how old I am? What does that matter? I'm asking because age brings wisdom. I'm much older than I look. Old enough to remember when your species first discovered fire. Old enough to remember when the Villani were just learning to use tools. Old enough to remember when the galaxy was very different than it is now. The bridge crew exchanged glances. The human was clearly lying or delusional. Humans had only been spacefaring for a few hundred years at most. You're talking nonsense, Zexhai said. Humans are a young species. Your entire civilization is barely a few thousand years old, is it? Captain Chen asked. Are you sure about that? Tell me, Admiral. In all your conquests, have you ever wondered why so many species look similar? Why they all developed in roughly the same way? Why they all seem to follow similar patterns of growth and development? Zexhai frowned. It was true that many species they had encountered shared certain characteristics. But that was just natural evolution. You're stalling for time, he accused. Preparing some kind of defense. No, Captain Chen said sadly. I'm trying to give you one last chance to leave peacefully. You see, those warning beacons aren't empty threats. They're not ancient automated systems left behind by some dead civilization. There are warnings, Admiral. Humanity's warnings. Impossible. Look around your empire, Admiral. Really look. The Villani you just destroyed, they were our children. We guided them, helped them grow, watched them develop. The Song Weavers of Altara? Our students. The Morphic Collective. Our friends. Do you think we didn't notice when you started murdering our family? The human's words sent a chill through the bridge. Several crew members' crystal forms flickered with confused colors. You're lying, Zexhai said, but his voice was less certain now. The beacons have been broadcasting warnings for over 2 million years, Admiral. Every young aggressive species finds them eventually. Most are wise enough to listen. The warnings are very clear. Approach Earth with peaceful intentions or don't approach at all. Captain Chen leaned forward on her screen. Humanity is old, Admiral. Much older than your scouts reported. We've been traveling the galaxy for millions of years. We've helped dozens of species grow and develop. We've watched civilizations rise and fall, and we've learned that some species like yours need to be contained. Contained? Zexhai's color shifted to angry red. You dare threaten the Cytherian hegemony? I'm not threatening you, Captain Chen replied calmly. I'm explaining reality. You've ignored our warnings. You've entered our territory with a military fleet. You've attacked our children across the galaxy. The time for warnings is over. She paused and her expression became sad. We really hoped your species would be different. We watched you develop, saw your potential, but you chose conquest over cooperation. Violence over wisdom. And now you're here in our home system threatening our world. Human, Zexai snarled. You have 12 ships. I have 200. Your threats are meaningless. Captain Chen nodded slowly. You're right about the numbers, Admiral. You do have 200 ships, but you're wrong about everything else. She touched something on her control panel, and suddenly the space around the human fleet began to shimmer like heat waves in a desert. What's happening? Demanded the tactical officer. Before anyone could answer, the human fleet began to change. Where there had been 12 ships, now there were dozens. Then hundreds. Then thousands. Impossible, whispered the science officer. Where are they coming from? The shimmering effect spread across the space around Earth. More and more human ships appeared, materializing out of what had seemed like empty space. Each vessel was different, but all shared the same sleek design and unknown technology. Stealth technology? Suggested the aide weakly. No. Captain Chen's voice came from the speakers. Not stealth. We were simply sleeping, waiting, hoping we wouldn't need to wake up. Zexai stared at the screen in growing horror. The human fleet now numbered in the millions. Ships filled the space around Earth like a cloud of metal insects. And still more were appearing. This is impossible, he said. Our scouts detected only a few dozen ships in this entire system. Your scouts saw what we wanted them to see, Captain Chen replied. A few patrol ships, some orbital stations, signs of a young civilization just learning to reach for the stars. We hoped it would be enough to make you choose a different target. The reality of the situation began to sink in. The Catherians hadn't discovered a primitive world to conquer. They had stumbled into the home system of something ancient and powerful. Who are you? Zexai asked quietly. Captain Chen's image smiled sadly. We're your elders, Admiral. The species that helped shape this galaxy into what it is today. The gardeners who planted the seeds that became the civilizations you've been destroying. She paused, looking directly at him through the screen. And we're very disappointed in you. Admiral Zexai stared at the impossible sight before him. The space around Earth was filled with millions of human ships, each one radiating power that made his instruments scream warnings. But it was Captain Chen herself that truly frightened him. As he watched, her appearance began to change. The young-looking human woman on the screen aged before his eyes. Not quickly, but like time itself was catching up with her. Her dark hair became streaked with silver, then pure white. Lines appeared around her eyes and mouth. But her eyes remained the same, calm, ancient, and infinitely sad. What you're seeing now is closer to my true age, she said. I've been alive for over 3 million years, Admiral. I've watched the birth and death of entire civilizations. I was there when your species first looked up at the stars and wondered what lay beyond your world. The bridge crew stood in stunned silence. Their crystal forms flickered between colors as they tried to process what they were seeing. Impossible, Zexai whispered. No species lives that long. Humans do, Captain Chen replied. We learned long ago how to extend our lives, how to preserve our knowledge across the millennia. We had to. Someone needed to watch over the galaxy as it grew. She gestured, and the main screen split to show images from across known space. Zexai recognized many of the worlds. Planets the hegemony had conquered. Species they had destroyed. The Villani, Captain Chen said. And the screen showed images of the crystalline beings in their prime. We found them when they were just learning to work with crystal formations. We taught them how to shape livingstone, how to build cities that sang with harmonious frequencies. They called us the Sky Teachers. The image changed to show another species, the Song Weavers of Altara. We discovered them when they were simple creatures making basic music. We helped them develop their sonic abilities, taught them how to weave sound into art that could touch the soul itself. More images flashed by, dozens of species, all showing signs of advanced development that seemed too sophisticated for their apparent age. All of them, Captain Chen continued. Every species you've conquered in the past 1,000 years. They were our children, Admiral. Not biologically, but in every way that mattered. We guided them, protected them, helped them grow into something beautiful. Zexai felt his crystal form shifting to pale gray, the color of shock and fear. You're saying, all of them. Her voice was heavy with grief. 53 civilizations. Billions of beings. All of them connected to us, all of them under our protection. And you murdered them, the tactical officer spoke up, his voice shaking. Sir, I'm reading massive energy buildups from the human fleet. Power signatures unlike anything in our databases. They're not using conventional weapons, added the science officer. I can't even identify what type of energy they're generating. Captain Chen heard them. We don't use weapons the way you understand them, Admiral. We learned long ago that there are better ways to resolve conflicts than simply destroying things. Then what are you going to do to us? Zexai asked. That depends on you. Captain Chen's image seemed to look directly into his soul. You see, Admiral, this situation isn't unique. Every few thousand years, a species like yours emerges. Young, aggressive, convinced that strength equals the right to rule. They spread across the galaxy, conquering and destroying, until eventually they find our warning beacons. The screen showed more images, different species, different ships, but all with the same aggressive, militaristic appearance as the Cytherian fleet. Most listen to the warnings and turn back, Captain Chen continued. They realize they've encountered something beyond their understanding and choose wisdom over pride. Some even eventually become our allies and partners. And the others? Zexai asked, though he dreaded the answer. The others ignore the warnings. They come here convinced of their own superiority. They threaten our world and our people. Her expression became stern. They learn why we left those warnings. Suddenly, the space around the Cytherian fleet began to change. It wasn't an attack, it was something far more unsettling. Reality itself seemed to bend and twist. Zexai watched in horror as some of his ships simply stopped. They didn't explode or break apart. They just became motionless, as if frozen in time. What are you doing to them? He demanded. Showing you what we're capable of, Captain Chen replied calmly. Those ships are unharmed. Their crews are safe, but they can no longer move or fire weapons. We're very good at non-violent solutions, Admiral. More Cytherian ships found themselves immobilized. The crews were alive and uninjured, but their vessels no longer responded to commands. It was like watching a deadly disease spread through the fleet, except no one was dying. This is impossible, Zexai's aide whispered. No technology can do this. Your technology can't, Captain Chen agreed. But ours can. We've had millions of years to develop it, Admiral. While your species was learning to make fire, we were learning to manipulate the fundamental forces of reality itself. The science officer looked up from his station, his crystal form flickering with confusion. Sir, I'm detecting something else. The stars around us, they're moving. Everyone turned to look at the main display. The science officer was right. The distant stars were shifting position, rearranging themselves into perfect geometric patterns. It was subtle but unmistakable. A demonstration, Captain Chen explained. We don't just travel between the stars, Admiral. When necessary, we can move the stars themselves. The implications hit Zexai like a physical blow. A species that could move stars could reshape entire solar systems. They could make planets disappear or create new ones. They could snuff out suns or ignite new ones. Why? He asked desperately. Why didn't you stop us before? Why did you let us conquer so many worlds? Captain Chen's expression softened with sadness. Because we hoped you would learn. Every species goes through growing pains, Admiral. We wanted to give yours a chance to mature naturally. We intervened only when absolutely necessary. But we killed billions of beings, Zexai protested. Yes, and that grieves us beyond words. Her voice carried the weight of genuine sorrow, but forced evolution rarely works. Species that are compelled to change often rebel later in even more destructive ways. We prefer to let civilizations find their own path to wisdom. Even if it means others suffer, even then. Captain Chen's image looked older now, burdened by the weight of countless difficult decisions. It's one of the hardest lessons of being an elder species, Admiral. Sometimes the greatest kindness is allowing others to make their own mistakes and learn from them. The tactical officer interrupted. Sir, more of our ships are being immobilized. We're down to less than 50 mobile vessels. Zexai looked around his bridge. His crew was terrified, their crystal forms shifting between colors of fear and confusion. They had trained their entire lives for military conquest, but this wasn't war. This was something completely beyond their understanding. What do you want from us? He asked finally. Captain Chen studied him for a long moment. That's the right question, Admiral. What we want is for your species to grow up, to learn that there are better ways to interact with the galaxy than conquest and destruction. And if we refuse, then you'll remain in your home systems under our supervision until you do learn. Her voice was firm but not cruel. We've done it before with other species. Some take centuries to mature, others take millennia, but eventually they all learn. Zexai felt his entire worldview crashing down around him. The Catherian hegemony, which had seemed so powerful and unstoppable, was nothing more than a child's game to these ancient humans. You could have destroyed us at any time, he realized. Yes, Captain Chen confirmed. We could have stopped your expansion centuries ago. We could have prevented every conquest, saved every world, but that wouldn't have taught you anything. Pain and loss are often the only teachers that aggressive species will listen to. The screen showed images of the Catherian, homeworlds, beautiful crystal cities, gleaming under alien suns. Your people are not evil. Admiral, Captain Chen continued. You're young and confused about your place in the galaxy. With time and guidance, the Catherians could become something wonderful. We've seen it happen before. Guidance? Zexai asked. From us. From species that have learned to balance strength with wisdom. From the civilizations you once conquered if they're willing to forgive. Captain Chen's expression became hopeful. The galaxy is vast enough for everyone, Admiral. There's no need for conquest when cooperation yields far better results. Around them, more Catherian ships fell silent as the human technology spread through the fleet. But the crews remained unharmed, watching in awe as their captors demonstrated power beyond imagination, while showing perfect restraint. I need to contact my government, Zexai said quietly. Of course, Captain Chen agreed. But Admiral, choose your words carefully. What happens next depends on how your people respond to this moment. We're offering them a chance to join the galactic community as equals rather than conquerors. It's a better offer than most aggressive species receive. Zexai nodded slowly, understanding that the Catherian hegemony's age of conquest was over. The only question now was what would replace it. Admiral Zexai opened a quantum communication channel to the Catherian High Command. Within moments, the bridge filled with holographic images of the Empire's most powerful leaders. Supreme Commander Veltar, ruler of the hegemony, appeared first, her massive crystal form glowing with imperial purple. Admiral, she said in her commanding voice, report, why have you stopped your advance? Why are your ships not responding to our signals? Zexai looked around his immobilized bridge. Half his crew couldn't move their stations, frozen by some incomprehensible human technology. The other half stared at him with frightened, confused expressions. Supreme Commander, he began carefully, the situation here is not what we expected. Explain. The humans are not a primitive species. They are, he struggled to find words. They are ancient, more advanced than anything we've ever encountered. They claim to be millions of years old. Several of the high command leaders shifted colors with skepticism. General Morketh, the military commander, glowed angry red. Impossible, he declared. Our scouts confirmed they were primitives. A few hundred years of spaceflight at most. That's what they wanted us to see, Zexai replied. Supreme Commander, they have millions of ships. They can manipulate reality itself. They move the stars around us like decorations. Admiral, Supreme Commander Veltar's voice carried warning. Are you saying you've been defeated by primitives? Before Zexai could answer, Captain Chen's image appeared in the holographic conference. The human looked directly at Supreme Commander Veltar. Greetings, leaders of the Catherian hegemony, she said in perfect Catherian. I am Captain Sarah Chen. I believe your admiral was trying to explain our conversation. The reaction from the High Command was immediate. Crystal forms flared with shocked colors as they realized an alien had somehow intercepted their most secure communications. Impossible, General Morketh shouted. This channel is encrypted with quantum locks. Your encryption is based on mathematics we taught your species when you were still learning to count, Captain Chen replied calmly. We've been monitoring your communications for centuries, hoping you would eventually choose a peaceful path. Supreme Commander Veltar's form shifted to deep purple with rage. You dare spy on the Catherian hegemony? We dare many things when the safety of the galaxy is at stake, Captain Chen answered, including intervening when aggressive species threaten our children. Your children? The civilizations you've been destroying. The Villani, the Songweavers, the Morphic Collective. All of them were species we guided and protected. You've been murdering our family, Supreme Commander. The High Command fell silent. Even through the holographic connection, Zexai could see their confusion and growing fear. You're lying, General Morketh said, but his voice lacked conviction. Am I? Captain Chen gestured and the communication expanded to show images from across Catherian space. Look at your own conquered worlds, General. Really look at them. The images showed Cytherian colonies built on the bones of destroyed civilizations. But now, with human guidance, they could see things they had missed before. Similar architectural styles across different species. Mathematical principles that seemed too advanced for their apparent development level. Art and music that shared common themes across vast distances. All of our children carried pieces of human knowledge with them, Captain Chen explained. Seeds of wisdom we planted to help them grow. If you look carefully, you can see our influence in everything they built. Science Minister Colrex, the oldest member of the High Command, spoke up. The mathematical progressions, the artistic similarities. We always wondered why so many species developed along parallel lines. Because they had the same teachers, Captain Chen confirmed. Us. Supreme Commander Veltar's crystal form flickered with uncertainty. Even if this is true, it changes nothing. The hegemony will not bow to threats from any species, no matter how old. We're not asking you to bow, Captain Chen replied. We're asking you to grow up. What does that mean? It means abandoning conquest as a way of life. It means learning to coexist with other species instead of destroying them. It means joining the galactic community as partners rather than rulers. General Morketh's form flared bright red with anger. Never. The Cytherian way is strength through dominance. We will not change our nature to please ancient primitives. Then you will remain confined to your home systems, Captain Chen said simply. We've done this before, General. Species that refuse to evolve peacefully are contained until they're ready to join civilization. You can't contain the entire hegemony, Morketh protested. We have thousands of worlds, millions of ships. Admiral Zexhai, Captain Chen said, turning back to him. Please show your leaders what we've done to your fleet. Reluctantly, Zexhai activated the external cameras. The High Command saw the Cytherian conquest fleet, 200 of their finest warships, floating helplessly in space. Not destroyed, not damaged, but completely powerless. This is impossible, whispered Science Minister Colrex. Your Admiral's fleet represents the best the hegemony has to offer, Captain Chen observed. 200 ships with the most advanced Cytherian technology. We neutralize them without firing a single weapon. How? Demanded General Morketh. The same way we'll neutralize any other aggressive action you take, Captain Chen replied. We don't need to destroy you to stop you. We simply remove your ability to cause harm. Supreme Commander Veltar was quiet for a long moment, her crystal form cycling through various colors as she processed the situation. What exactly are you proposing? She asked finally. Choose, Captain Chen said simply. Evolution or containment. Grow beyond your need for conquest. Learn to coexist peacefully with other species and join the galactic community. Or remain in your current systems under our supervision until you're ready to make that choice. And if we refuse both options? General Morketh asked defiantly. Captain Chen's expression became sad. Then you'll discover why we went to the trouble of building those warning beacons, General. We really hoped it wouldn't come to that. The main screen suddenly filled with new images. Thousands of human ships were appearing throughout Cytherian space. Not attacking, not threatening, simply present, watching, waiting. They're already here, Science Minister Colrex whispered. Throughout our entire empire. We've been here for a while, Captain Chen confirmed. Waiting to see what choice you would make. We hoped you would choose wisdom before it came to this. Admiral Zexhai watched his leaders struggle with the reality of their situation. The mighty Cytherian hegemony, conqueror of 53 worlds, was helpless before these ancient humans. Supreme Commander, he said quietly, I've seen what they can do. This isn't a fight we can win. You would have us surrender our way of life? She asked. I would have us choose survival over pride, Zexhai replied. These humans could have destroyed us at any time. Instead, they're offering us a chance to become something better. General Morketh's form blazed with fury. Better, we are Cytherians. We are the dominant force in this galaxy. No, Captain Chen corrected gently. You're children playing with weapons you don't understand. But children can learn, grow, become wise. That's what we're offering you. The chance to mature. Supreme Commander Veltar studied the human's image for a long time. Around her, the other members of the High Command waited for her decision. If we agree to your terms, she said slowly, what guarantee do we have that you won't simply destroy us later? The same guarantee we've given to dozens of other species over the millions of years we've been guardians of this galaxy, Captain Chen replied. Our word, and our history of keeping it. The communication fell silent except for the quiet hum of technology. The fate of the Cytherian hegemony hung in the balance, dependent on the wisdom of leaders who had never before faced a choice between evolution and extinction. The silence stretched across space as the Cytherian High Command debated humanity's ultimatum. Admiral Zexhai watched the holographic forms of his leaders shift through different colors, their crystal bodies reflecting their inner turmoil. Finally, Supreme Commander Veltar spoke. "We need time to consider this," she said. "Of course," Captain Chen replied, "but understand that while you deliberate, we will continue to monitor the situation. Any hostile action against our children or attempts to break containment will be stopped immediately." "How long do we have?" asked Science Minister Kolrex. "As long as you need," Captain Chen answered. "We've waited millions of years to reach this point. We can wait a little longer for wisdom to prevail." The quantum communication ended, leaving Zexhai alone with his thoughts and his immobilized fleet. Over the next several days, he spent hours talking with Captain Chen, learning about humanity's true role in the galaxy. "Why did you really withdraw from galactic affairs?" he asked during one of their conversations. Captain Chen, appearing in her true ancient form, considered the question carefully. "Because direct intervention rarely creates lasting change," she said. "When we actively ruled the galaxy, species became dependent on us. They never learned to solve their own problems or make their own moral choices. So you stepped back and let chaos reign?" "We stepped back and let freedom reign," she corrected. "Yes, it led to conflicts like yours, but it also led to genuine growth, real learning, authentic development. Most species eventually find their way to wisdom. Those that don't," she gestured at his disabled fleet, "we contain them until they do." "What about the species we destroyed? The billions who died?" Captain Chen's expression grew heavy with sorrow. "Every death grieves us. But forced peace is just another form of tyranny. True civilization must be chosen, not imposed." 3 weeks later, the Cytherian High Command reached their decision. Most of the Empire chose evolution. They began the difficult process of contacting the surviving populations of species they had conquered, offering reparations and assistance. They opened their borders to refugees and started learning about cooperation instead of conquest. But not everyone agreed with this choice. General Morketh led a faction that refused to accept human authority. They gathered a fleet of loyalist ships and attempted to break through the containment around their system. The result was swift and decisive. Every ship in Morketh's fleet simply stopped, their crews finding themselves transported to a beautiful world where they would be cared for while they reconsidered their choices. "It's not imprisonment," Captain Chen explained to a shaken Admiral Zexhai. "It's a chance for reflection. Morketh and his followers can leave whenever they genuinely commit to peaceful coexistence. What if they never change? Then they'll spend their lives in comfortable exile. We won't force them to evolve, but we won't allow them to harm others either." The transformation of the Cytherian hegemony was slow but remarkable. Admiral Zexhai himself became one of the strongest advocates for change. He personally led missions to rebuild some of the worlds the hegemony had damaged, working alongside the humans who had once been their enemies. "I don't understand you," he told Captain Chen during one of these missions. "We murdered your children, destroyed entire civilizations. Why help us?" "Because hatred is a burden we choose not to carry," she replied. "Because every species deserves a chance to become better than their worst moments. Because forgiveness is often the only path to real peace." As the months passed, more human ships appeared throughout the galaxy. But these weren't conquest fleets or occupation forces. They were teachers, healers, and guides. Humanity was awakening from its long sleep, taking a more active role in galactic affairs. The ancient warning beacons around Earth were updated with new messages. Instead of threats, they now broadcast invitations. "Welcome to Sol System. Approach with peaceful intentions and be welcomed as family. Learn with us. Grow with us. Help us tend the garden of the galaxy." Young species still found the beacons and heard their warnings about aggression, but now they also heard offers of friendship and guidance. Most chose wisdom from the start, guided by the examples of species like the reformed Cytherians. On Earth itself, Captain Sarah Chen stood in a garden overlooking the Pacific Ocean. The planet was more beautiful than ever, carefully tended by humanity's advanced technology. Cities floated in the clouds, coral reefs thrived in crystal clear waters, and forests stretched across continents where once there had been deserts. The galaxy is changing, her aide observed, joining her in the garden. More species are choosing cooperation over conquest every year. As it should be, Chen replied. We've learned that the best garden grows when every flower is free to bloom in its own way. And the aggressive species? The ones who still choose violence? They learn eventually. Some take longer than others, but patience is one of the first lessons of being an elder species. She smiled slightly. General Morketh just requested a meeting. I think he's ready to try a different path. Above them, ships from dozens of species moved peacefully through Earth's skies. Former enemies worked together on projects that benefited everyone. The galaxy's children were growing up, learning to solve problems through discussion rather than destruction. Will we ever be able to step back again? The aide asked. Return to our quiet observation? Captain Chen considered this. Perhaps, but not for a long time. The galaxy is entering a new phase of development. Our children are becoming adolescents, ready for more complex lessons about responsibility and cooperation. They'll need guidance as they learn to manage their growing power. In the distance, a Catherian ship landed at the spaceport. Admiral Zexhai emerged, his crystal form glowing with peaceful blue-green colors. He had come to attend a conference on galactic restoration, representing his people's commitment to their new path. Look at him, Chen said to her aide. 6 months ago, he was ready to destroy our world. Now he's one of our most dedicated partners in healing the damage his people caused. Do you think his change is genuine? I think people become what they're given the chance to become, Chen replied. We offered him a choice between destruction and growth. He chose growth. That choice, made freely, has more power than any forced conversion ever could. As the sun set over Earth, painting the sky in brilliant colors, Captain Chen reflected on the long journey that had brought them to this point. Humanity had made many mistakes in their millions of years as galactic gardeners. They had intervened too much, then too little. They had tried to force growth, then allowed too much destruction. But they had learned, and now finally they were finding the balance between guidance and freedom, between protection and independence. The galaxy was becoming what they had always hoped it could be. A place where different species could coexist, learn from each other, and grow together toward something greater than any of them could achieve alone. The warning beacons continued to broadcast their messages across the stars. But now they spoke not just of consequences for aggression, but of possibilities for cooperation. They were no longer just warnings to stay away. They were invitations to come home. And across the galaxy, species after species was accepting that invitation, ready to join the family of civilizations that humanity had spent millions of years nurturing. The age of conquest was ending. The age of cooperation had begun. In the garden overlooking Earth's peaceful ocean, Captain Sarah Chen smiled and prepared for the next day's work. There was still much to do, still many species to guide, still countless worlds to heal. But for the first time in millions of years, she felt truly hopeful about the galaxy's future. The children were finally growing up,